Hello and welcome to Chaos to Clarity, the podcast that's your compass to navigate the exciting world of service-based businesses. If you're a determined woman in your current business adventure, striving to conquer the chaos and build your empire, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Maggie, your go-to business bestie and chaos navigator. I've spent nearly 2 decades in the service-based industry, building a photography business, a yoga studio, and now a thriving coaching practice. I've cracked the code to consistent income without all the chaos and noise. So get ready to increase your business growth, connect with your ideal clients, and find ease in both business and in life. It's time to turn your frustrations into inspiration and your chaos into clarity. So go ahead and grab your coffee, a pen and paper, and let's dive into the journey of building your dream service-based business together. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. There we go. My name is Maggie. I am your business bestie, your Chaos to Clarity coach, and the host of this show. And today we have Megan, who is a funnel fixer. She helps with copywriting in funnels, and I am so excited to chat with her today. So, Megan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone? Let us know who you are, what you do, and how long you've been in business.
Yes. So my name is Megan Kachigan. I am a copywriter, intentional copywriter, and I help a lot of coaches, speakers, women entrepreneurs use their voice to sell more of what they do, their offer, in a way where their voice is still authentic to who they are and their brand. And I have been in business for over 5 years now.
Awesome. I love that. And I know, so I talk a ton about using your own voice. I help a lot of clients learn how to kind of tap into themselves again and use their own
Yeah.
voice. So I'm super excited just to hear what you have to say about, copywriting and funnels and just how all that can go. But before we get into that, I would love to know what is something challenging that you've overcome in your business, and how did it affect your business?
Good question. So I think one thing that is ironically challenging to me, but also like challenging to pretty much everyone. We were just talking about this beforehand, is choosing one place to show up consistently and like, what do I talk about? Um, and I think we get so much FOMO, fear of missing out, of like, I have to be on Instagram, I have to be on LinkedIn, I have to be on Facebook, I have to email my list, I have to do blogs. What about ads? And there's so many options of where we could show up and where we could get traffic flowing into our, world. But we are just one person, or even if you have a team, it's still a lot and you still have to fund that. Um, and it can often be like super overwhelming. And so my, I don't know, advice, and also the thing that I did to kind of resolve this or make it less challenging, was just to choose one place to show up consistently. So for me, that is my email list. If you want to hear from me, be in my world, get on my email list. But emailing my list regularly also looked like, and people don't talk about this, means getting off Instagram. I don't show up there, because it stretched me too thin. I couldn't do all of the things. So my emails get repurposed, to like Facebook or LinkedIn. And that's and that's about it. And that is more than enough. That is more than enough.
Yeah.
So this year, my goal is, so now that I have a rhythm in place with my email list, I'm going to expand to doing blogs regularly. And once that flow is in place, I'm going to expand to like getting those blogs also on Pinterest. So I'm getting found on Google and on Pinterest and all the other things. But I started with the one small, simple, sustainable thing, and then increasing gradually from there, because there's always so much copy to write in business. Like, people don't realize it when they get into it and like don't want to admit it, and then it's just like, oh wow, okay, now I have to write that, now I have to write that, oh, I have to market that, oh, that's this piece of copy, this piece of copy, this, it's just so much. And I know, especially people more at the beginning of their journey, or if they've just made a pivot, often maybe you are your own best copywriter right now, either by choice or by necessity. And that's not a bad place to be. Like it is such a good skill for every business owner to have. And then once you get to that like 6+ figure quarter million mark, then copywriting might be your bottleneck and it might be time to outsource it. Um, but I would say at least for sure until your first 100K, like you've got to be your own best copywriter. And that's a skill that you carry with you throughout like
Yeah.
your career in business, you know?
Yeah. Oh my God. And I love, so I love everything you've just brought up, right? And I have talked a ton about consistency, and I really love
Mm-hmm.
that. And I know it's so challenging for everyone. I've had the same challenges, right? Where it's like I tell so many clients, I think I tell every single client I've ever had, pick one platform, get really good at that platform. And that doesn't necessarily mean Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest. It can be email, right? I think people forget
Right.
that it can be email, it can be a blog. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be on social media. And in fact, I just had a
Right.
conversation the other day with someone who said, I really hate social media. And I was like, cool. How can you grow
Same.
your how can you grow your email list? How do you want to connect with people so you can grow your email list? You can show up more on your email list. And, she looked at me and she was like, I can do that? And I was like, oh my gosh, let me like write you a permission slip right now and hand it over because yeah, absolutely you can. And I
Mm-hmm.
think something else people get really kind of caught up in is like, what does consistency mean? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, so when I graduated college and high school, like between 2003, well, I'd say between 2000 and 2010, the big thing was like, oh, I'm hustling. I've got my side hustle. I'm a boss babe. I'm a blah, blah, blah. I'm a work all day, da, 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 which is cool, but not sustainable, right? If we're thinking
Right.
like simple, sustainable, like just like overall, like healthy for yourself, like
Mm-hmm.
consistency doesn't necessarily mean you're on socials or sending messages or emails or whatever 24/7, 365, right? Like
Right.
what do you want your consistency to be? Do you want to send one email a week? Do you want to send three emails? Do you want to post on one platform three times a week? Like, okay, you've got that consistency nailed down. And now let's write the copy to match that, right? And like you said, when you're under that 100K mark, you are your best copywriter. You know what you want to say. And I think a lot of people struggle with like, oh my gosh, are people going to like what I'm saying? Right? So maybe let's
Mm-hmm.
explore that avenue, right? Like so if you're in that pivot place or if you're kind of under that 100K mark where you're starting to you're on your way to thinking you need a copywriter, right? How
Mm-hmm.
can someone prepare to like get their stuff in order so that when you would come on board, like what would that look like?
Yeah. So I think it's knowing your marketing plan and having like a good flow in place. So like how are people going to come into your world? If it's social media, great, go all in on that. If you're like, I hate social media, me too. Figure out like your SEO plan, or if you're like do collabs, like list swaps, JVs, referrals. If paid ads are your thing and you just want to go that route and build fast, you have the capital for it, do that, like run the ads. There's so many options. Or like, what about speaking, podcasts, summits, stages, things like that? Like there are tons of options for you to get people into your world. So like choose your one thing, know how you're going to nurture people, know how they're going to buy from you. Is it a sales page? Is it an application? Is it a call? Um, and then the more like knowing your brand voice, it just comes from using your voice. The more you use it, the more you'll realize, oh, this is me, or like, oh, something feels off about this. And that will lead us into like, well, what do you say? How do you say it? How often? And to speak to what you were talking about earlier is like, how often do I send emails or how often should I post? Like, is a question I get a ton as a copywriter. And like, there's no like one magic answer, which everyone hates is like, just tell me, just tell me the magical answer. But truly, like you were saying, it depends on, like, if you've been emailing your list once a month, don't think that all of a sudden you're going to email them every single day just because like so and so guru says to email your list daily. Or like if you're starting at once a month, then like, and you want to up it, like go to twice a month, like every other week. Like do something that is sustainable for you and then like also sustainable for your audience. So it's not just like every once in a while to like, oh, hello, all of a
Right.
sudden.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I'm curious. So something I teach a lot of people is how to kind of like, I guess, go viral on Facebook is kind of what I
Mm,
teach people, right? So, and I say kind of, and it's kind of like a hesitancy because it's not like I'm teaching you to like go viral, like a viral TikTok or reel or whatever, right? It's more along the lines of how can I help you get more engagement and have better conversations, right? So, how
yes.
can you create content that will allow for engagement? And I think that is something that when you're in those beginning stages and those pivoting stages, like how can you mold market research right into your copy so that now you're starting to have
Mm,
conversations so that people are commenting and then you can go in and start to have a conversation if you're on Facebook or like in an email. What kind of call to action can you give people so that they want to hit the reply button and say something back to you, or they want to click the button and they want to go to your form, right? So I'd love to hear your like any tips you have for people on like how to, I guess, give better call to actions, right? Because those are huge when, like you can write all the value you want and give all these amazing stories, but if you're not telling people what to do, they're not going to take action.
right. It's just kind of like, oh, that was nice. And
Right.
then they like go on to the next thing. And you're like, okay, well, like you wrote this really awesome thing. But if you didn't have the call to action with it, then it's like, okay, well, then they can't take the next step with you, even if they want to. Which they should if like they've read through your full email or read through the bottom to the bottom of your post or whatever it was, then they likely want to take that next step with you. And you didn't give them that opportunity without a call to action or without a strong call to action. And not everything has to be selling. It could be, follow from our tips. It could be respond to this email, answering this question. And people get so real in emails, like way more so than a comment on social media because like social media, everyone can see it. And there's I don't know, facade is the right word, but an image that you're trying to give off. Whereas email, like the inbox is so much more personal. And people really get real with like really what they're going through. And it builds trust and I think a lot more quickly as well.
Yeah. And I think that is a really amazing way to, like a lot of business owners will talk about like, gaining rapport, know, like, and trust.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
there's also, and I've come to realize this over the last like 6 months, like, yes, there's rapport, there's know, like, and trust, but there's also seen, heard, and understood, which is like the level
Hmm.
up from know, like, and trust. So, as you are willing to open up, and I'm not saying like pour your heart out, right? Like, obviously,
Right.
there's
Appropriate levels of
appropriate,
vulnerability.
right? Because I know I've seen people like I've gotten some pretty crazy emails from some business owners who sent these emails out to their whole list. And I'm like, ooh, I probably wouldn't have aired that much dirty laundry, but you do you. If you're comfortable with that, that's cool. But I think, like being able to be real with your audience, it brings you down from this like guru status of like, oh, I am high and mighty and this, that, and the other thing, and I know everything. And it brings you down to this like, hey, I'm a bunch of steps ahead of you, and here are some things that I'm fumbling with. Like, watch out for this pothole. Don't make this same mistake that I did.
Hmm.
And I think that can really, really open things up and allow people to, want to take action and sometimes take action quicker where they've been on the fence and they're like, oh, I don't know if I should book. But then they start seeing that and they're like, oh, wow. Yeah, if she can make it through it, so can I.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, being relatable And even just that likability factor by just showing that you're a human too, and not everything is perfect,
Right.
um, really it builds trust really quickly, and it just makes you seem more, yeah, like you said, like accessible. And you're not just like some out of reach. And I don't know, I think it's easy for some people to like put these gurus like on a pedestal almost.
Right.
And like, they're just human too.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So what is something that people can do right now if they are, kind of working on some of their brand voice and, just all of the, I guess, funnel, email, copywriting things, because I feel like that can be really broad sometimes, right? So like if someone is wondering like where can they start? Right? I know we talked a little bit about like kind of what to do, but and kind of like how often to show up, the consistency, but what is something that can help people, I guess, create maybe content, right? If they are their
Mhm.
own best copywriter right now before they're coming into your world, what are
Mhm.
things that they can write about?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's so easy to feel like I know I'm supposed to email my audience or post, but I don't know what to say. Or like I know I'm supposed to use storytelling, but like what stories do I tell? And so first I would say getting super clear on who you're talking to, like knowing your ideal client avatar in and out, like your best friend. Because you have to know who you're talking to, obviously, in order to be able like stand a chance of resonating with them. But then I would also say you can use like SEO, search engine optimization, to know what topics is your audience already searching for? What questions are they already asking? Because especially if you're afraid of like, is this even going to resonate with them? Do they even care? Do they want to hear this? Like, well, SEO tells you what people are Googling, and like what people Google by themselves is a lot more honest than like what they post on social media.
Yeah.
So it's a super, super powerful tool. And even if you don't know how to use like keyword search tools, and there's a million of them out there, even if you just like type it on Google and then just look at like frequently, or what is it called? People also search for,
Yeah.
and see what questions people are Googling. And then just write your own response to that in your own words with your own perspective. That is a very quick and easy way to just start creating content. Another thing I would say is to look at your past content. What emails have gotten the most responses, or what posts have gotten the most engagement? What blogs are getting the most views? Like, whatever your platform is, go look back at that and see what people really liked and resonated with, and then keep like playing off of that. Use those angles, talk about them in different ways, expand on them. That would give you a ton of ideas too. And it also kind of tells you like what to steer clear of, or like, oh, that didn't really work with them. Okay, cool. Now I know. And like, let me try this instead.
Yeah, I love that. And I think being open to like play, right? Or just like
Hmm.
testing, right? Like seeing like, okay, cool. This got this much attention and I thought it was going to get this much. And I'm going to
Hmm.
switch this and I'm going to see maybe this topic does a little bit better.
Hmm.
I think that openness and kind of willingness to play really,
Hmm.
really helps, especially in the business entrepreneur space. I mean, it's constantly changing and shifting and moving. And there's, like, I think a
Yeah.
lot of people get caught up in trying to keep up with the trends of
Hmm.
things. And like,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, okay, you could keep up with the trends, but I feel like you're going to be flip-flopping every other day trying to keep up with that instead of just doing what feels good to you right now. Because a lot of times, if you're not doing what if you're doing something that doesn't feel good, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, I have to post on Instagram and I have no clue what to say. And I know I should say this. Like, well, then maybe don't do that, right? Like, choose something where you're like, oh, yeah, oh, I can't wait to send out this email. I've got, 3 pieces of content for the month. I'm so excited. Like,
Hmm.
that's where you want to be, right? Like, where your excitement in it is where you want to start to lean in more to grow. And then
Yeah.
you can start adding in.
Yeah, where your excitement is, lean in more. I love that.
Yeah. So what is one piece of advice that you would tell your younger self?
Ooh, a piece of advice I would tell my younger self is that you don't have to do it the way the guru or the influencer is saying to do it. Like their way, it's successful for them, but it's not the only way. And really finding your way. Um, like the right way is your way to do it. The right way is the way that plays to your unique strengths and talents and values and gifts. And not everyone was meant to do it their way. They have different background, different life experiences, different circumstances, different team, different revenue levels that allow them to fund, the team. Like there's just so many behind the scenes and other factors that we don't see. And, 3 easy steps to sell an online course for $1 billion launch. Like, those headlines that we see. And it's just like, okay, like maybe that worked for them, but like we're also missing a ton of context. And I think really stepping in and owning what is right for you and what is your strength, um, you're going to feel energy, you're going to feel excitement, and people feel that in your writing, whether that's blog or email or post or whatever it is. And to really be able to show up in your strength instead of showing it up in, well, I'm supposed to do this. So and so said to do this. Like it's a whole different energy. And um, people can tell when you're being authentic, when you're being yourself, when you're being real. And I think, especially in an age of AI, like that is valued so much more.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's just so amazing. And it just goes to show that, I know a lot of people are like, AI is going to take over the world. And I'm like, well, no. I mean, it's already been here for a long, long time. If people think that it's brand new right now in 2023 and 2024, I have news for you. It's not. I mean, it's been
Mhm.
around for a hot minute, and probably long before we even right like saw it in movies, right? Because they've been using it
Right.
in movies for probably 25 years at this point. So,
Mhm.
it's not new. It's new to, I guess, the people, right? Collectively the
Right.
people. But it's not necessarily like that new. So, when people start freaking out about that, I'm like, well, but you have to be able to like AI is not going to run your business for you. You have to decide that.
Yeah,
And
you're still the decision maker.
right. And honestly, AI has been really helpful for the times where I've been like stuck in that like I need brainstorming help and I don't
Mhm.
have, like an entrepreneur buddy that I can hop on Zoom with and like chat, right? And I need some quick ideas so that I can play off of that, right? But also
Mhm.
going to Google and typing in some of those questions is just as like invigorating and like thought sparking as AI can be sometimes. So, I think sometimes when people get into that, like, I don't know what to write scenario, right? A lot of times I'll say a lot of what you just said, right? Like, can you go to Google? Can you ask, like, what is a question you would be asking 5 years ago, right? What is something you would have Googled 5 years ago about your business? Start there, talk
Mhm.
about that. Talk about
Mhm.
those past things of like, oh, I went through this happened, I did this is the result. Here's how I can help you get a similar result, right?
Mhm.
There's power in that and people can feel that, right? They feel that energy
Oh,
behind
totally.
writing. Yeah. Awesome. So this is our last question. And this is my favorite question. And it's probably the weirdest one. So if you were a kitchen utensil or gadget, what would you be and why?
Ooh. Oh my gosh. I love it and was definitely not expecting this one. Um, okay, I'm just gonna say the thing coming to mind, and probably later on today, I'm like, oh, I should have said that instead. I'm gonna say a fork because you can like also kind of use it as a spoon if you need to. You could also like cut things as a knife if you need to. So it can kind of do all of the things. And I feel like one of my superpowers as a copywriter is like I understand the marketing strategy and then I also understand like the implementation, the execution. And it's like rare to see like the both, and it's usually like I just do strategy, okay, now you figure it out, or like I just do implementation but they don't understand the bigger picture. And so I'm able to bridge both of those. And so my very rough loose analogies, a fork can also do many things that you need it to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so amazing. And honestly, I mean, and really like it's my favorite question because, just like hearing everyone's reasons why behind that is just so fun. And I think, you're right. When you can bridge some of those gaps that a lot of people don't have, and it's not bad, but it is a bonus for you to say, hey, I can help you with these two things instead of just one. I think that makes things, it makes you more sellable, more appealing to the people who are buying your services.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, tell everyone how they can connect with you. Where is the best place that they can go? I'll drop all the links below in the show notes, but let everyone know how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me is to get on my email list, which you can do through, let's see, go through bit.ly/3M funnel audit will get you there. Or if you're like, what just happened? Google Megan Kachigan. That's Kachigan with a K. And my website will come up if you don't get the spelling perfect. And you can get on my email list that way. That is for sure the best way to stay in touch, where you get most up-to-date information. And I love getting responses when people email me back and tell me that you found me on this podcast. And I would love to hear that.
Yay. Awesome. Well, like I said, I'll have that all linked below. And Megan, it was so great to have you on. Thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait for everyone to hear this episode.
Awesome conversation. Thank you.
Wow, what a great interview. Thank you so much for showing up here on the Chaos to Clarity podcast. Again, my name is Maggie. I'm so excited to connect with you. You can find all of the information, all of the links below in the show notes for today's interview. And I hope you have the best day ever.